Hey everyone, let's get started with a quick poll. So there are a lot of languages here. How many of you speak two of these languages? At least two. At least three. Four. Okay, so we made it up to four. So you could probably guess what's common to these languages. And this is that Airflow now speaks them too, except for Klingon. Contributions are welcome. Also, there are more languages on the way, such as Greek, and I think that maybe there's another one. So a couple of words about myself. My name is Shahar Epstein. I've been working as an MLOps engineer for NCR Voix since 2021. And on that note, if you want to learn how my team utilizes Airflow, feel free to refer to the recording from last summit. Also, last year I became an Apache Airflow committer, and during this year I've been mostly active in the internationalization area. Now, my main contributions in this context were the ownership of two translations of those that you just saw. And also I authorized the internationalization policy, which will later be described. And one of the reasons for doing that is that I'm a huge fan of languages, both natural and programming. And before we move on, I'd like to note that this article, which I co-wrote with this gentleman, it describes in detail the challenges that we faced as an open source community with collaborating artificial intelligence and people as part of the translation process. Some parts of this presentation are either inspired by this article or taken from it, so feel free to read it in your own time. This is the agenda for today. We'll start with a quick demo, then we'll give some motivation, then the main part, how you could get involved and contribute translation. We'll talk about the future plans and wrap it up. So let's start with a quick demo. You saw a very similar demo earlier today in the keynote. So for the end user, basically the feature is very simple and straightforward. In Airflow 3.1 and above, you just go to the user menu, click select language, and select your language. Airflow will use this language for its interface until you change it to something else. A couple of thank yous go to Roy and Brent for introducing and reviewing this feature and Jarek for this video. And I would like to note that we also support right to left languages like Hebrew and Arabic by just flipping the UI directionality as you will just see in the video. Now, let's talk about why we do this at all. So, why translate Airflow's UI? So, one reason for doing that could be compliance with local standards and laws. So, for example, in France, you have a law named the Tubans Law, which requires the use of the French language in official government applications. I think that software is also included. So one reason could be the law or the standards demand it. And now, while legal compliance is a strong motivator, there's another and maybe deeper reason to consider for doing that. But before we get to the point, let's ask a simple question, and which is, what is a bad compromise? Now, imagine that you're a team manager and you have a thermostat in your office. Bob prefers the temperature to be 16 degrees Celsius. The Fahrenheit is written below, so please don't get me overheated with this Fahrenheit degrees. And Alice prefers the temperature to be 24 Celsius. And then you say, okay, so let's meet in the middle ground and make it 20 Celsius. but is it the best option? So for Bob, 20 Celsius might feel too hot. So for Bob, 20 Celsius might feel too hot, and for Alice, on the contrary, it might feel too cold. And what we learn from this is that the mathematical average does not reduce total discomfort, it just distributes it equally. So what does this analogy have to do with internationalization? And the answer is that for non-native speakers, and especially those who are not fluent, English is that 20 Celsius. And it's a compromise that feels neutral, maybe natural for others, but in reality, it can be uncomfortable for many. So with the internationalization feature, we give users the ability to use Airflow in the language which they feel most comfortable with. And this intention is well reflected in the title of the latest release, Human-Centered Workflows. So now you may ask, okay, why not rely only on machine-based translations? And there are a couple of reasons for that. So machine translations could be inaccurate, unclear, or unnatural for native speakers, and especially when it comes to the technical terms. So for example, when we want to say run a DAG in Spanish, it could be translated either as a correr un DAG, which implies physical running, or ejecutar un DAG, which means executing a program. Like this is the latter one is what we probably look for. Another reason is that translations might not fit the UI constraints, like this button that turns into a mini novel. Don't worry, this is not a real screenshot thanks to Jens, but it could happen if we are not careful enough. Now, current technologies like LLMs can help address both issues, but still they're not perfect, and it will take some time until we get there. So that's why we ensure a human review before merging translations. So now that we are motivated, let's get involved and see how we contribute translation to Airflow. So a couple of requirements for contributing translations. So the first one is that the language that you want to contribute should be standardized, and you could do it by what I call the Wikipedia test. So if there is a Wikipedia in this language or entry about this language in the English Wikipedia, it's fine. So you could use it for the language. Second requirement, proficiency. We won't ask you to show certificates, but we do expect that you will declare and show proficiency in the language that you want to contribute, and specifically with the technical terms. Now, keep in mind that it is a long-term commitment. So after merging the translation into the code base, we need to trust you that it will be maintained in the long run. So you could do that by showing a level of activity in other areas in Airflow. And there are more requirements, and they're described in the internationalization policy, which I mentioned earlier. And basically, it's a document which I initially wrote and later approved and improved by the community to define guidelines and rules for managing the lifecycle of translations in Apache Airflow. So everything that you need to know about the internationalization is available there, and you should comply with its requirements. So let's say that you comply and with all the requirements, and now you want to open a PR, so how do you get started? So in general, translation strings are stored in JSON files inside the dedicated directory within the locals folder. We've prepared a script that copies the English local JSON files into a new directory named after your language code, and you just run it as shown here. You replace the code with your language standard code. and you run it, and you get a number of JSON files with a lot of to-do comments as a prefix. So you know exactly what you need to do. So you could either go line by line and translate them manually, or just ask GitHub Copilot to do it all at once, whatever flows your boat. And except for the JSON files, as you see below, there are some small technical steps that you need to do, like adding the language to the menu and other small tasks. So please look at similar PRs or at the policy to see what needs to be done. Hopefully, we'll try to automate these steps later on. Now, we use the same script that you just saw without the add missing flag to ensure that your translation covers all of the English language terms. So this is an example for running it on the Polish translation, and you see the statistics for each file. And overall, it is required that it will cover at least 90% of the terms before the next release. So let's say that the translation has been merged, you are happy, Airflow is now in your language, and now how do we maintain it in the long term? So as I previously said, contributing a translation is a commitment. So terms in the English language change over time, which means that in each translation, we need someone in charge of synchronizing the changes and to keep up. Now, while it might sound a bit scary and time-consuming, so it might be, but you could use tools like LLMs that would make your work a lot easier. So we encourage you to do that. So now we do expect the translation will cover, as I said, at least 90% of the English terms before the release. But then you may ask, okay, that English translation could change on a daily basis. So how do we avoid constantly chasing the English translation? And to deal with that, we invented the English freeze. So at least 1 week before the release, we will avoid making changes in the English translation, maybe with some exceptions, but eventually it should help you to keep up. Now let's talk about ownership. So in fact, we need 2 owners for each translation, and they could be fulfilled by the same person, but also they could be by 2 or more people. The first one is called the translation owner, which could be any contributor. They review language aspects like vocabulary, grammar, and syntax. And the other one is the code owner, which should be an Apache Airflow committer, and they review the technical aspects like JSON validity to see that the CI passes, and eventually merging the PRs. Now, the translation owners, as I said, they could be anyone who fits the prerequisites, so please read the policy. They should resolve any language conflicts if there are any, and it is recommended in general to have at least 2 of them for peer reviews. If you can't get, another formal translation owner, it could be also another contributor. We'll find a solution for that, but in general, it is recommended that there will be 2 translation owners at least. And the other is the code owner, which must be an Airflow committer. Now, we are aware that there are not enough committers as languages, so that's why we offer the sponsorship model. So even if the code owner does not know your language, they could still sponsor yours. So the way it works, let's say that you want to, this is the overall process for contributing a translation. So first you create a pull request, then you find the code owner, You could do it in the dev list, Slack, or even here in the summit. The code owner starts the approval process in the Apache Airflow dev list, and also the entire approval process is described in the policy. You find another translator or translation owner for peer reviews, and after you have it ready and approved, you could ask the code owner to merge, and starting this point, you work together before each release to synchronize the translation, to synchronize the translation with the English one. Some future plans, so we will be very happy for more translations of Airflow. And also we are working on some ideas to improve the overall experience in when we talk about internationalization. So for example, there's often different digit grouping separator for different languages, like dot or commas. So we want to consider that in the relevant languages. Also, there's currently a PR for integrating GitHub Copilot. So the script that I just showed you earlier will also perform the translation itself. And we could take this thing into many other directions, so feel free to contribute and get involved in the internationalization effort. And to sum it up, the internationalization enhances Airflow accessibility for non-native English speakers. Contributing in translation is a long-term commitment, as I said, but it's not overly complex. And with the help of LLMs, as the time goes, the translation ownership will shift from more writing to more reviewing, making the process more efficient and less time-consuming. Now, there's a special offer for the participants or the watchers in the video. So free translation sponsorship. So first you need to ensure that you fit all the requirements. Create a PR for contributing the translation. I remind that it's supposed to be at least 90% completed. Contact me via GitHub or Slack, and I'll be happy to sponsor your PR. These are my LinkedIn, GitHub, mail if you need. And that's all. Thank you very much.